I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only gon'
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm JKM. Today we're going to be looking at some of the playoff matchups going on, predicting all the wild card weekend games, just the wild card starting this week. I'm going to hopefully do them in order, if I remember the order correctly. Later on this week, hopefully tomorrow, I'm going to be recording my full playoff predictions. So make sure you like and subscribe so that you can keep up with that and you can see who I think going to eventually make it to the Super Bowl and end up actually winning the Super Bowl and the matchups that I have going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this with our wild card matchups in order, starting off the weekend on Saturday at 4:30. We're going to be going into the Chargers and the Texans, the 5 versus 4 matchup at the Texans. Chargers going on the road. This one's probably the second hardest that I've had to pick so far. I think the hardest definitely is going to be to pick is Green Bay versus the Eagles. I think that one's going to be the most with injuries going on. It's going to be the most closest one. Possible upset alert there. But with this one, with going back to the Texans and the Chargers, this one's very interesting because the Chargers have been playing very well recently. Jim Harbaugh's known for his playoff, run the ball type football, play defense, very aggressive, hard nosed run game that's going to get after the opponent that ends up making the playoff runs. Because if you can't run the ball in the playoffs, you're not going to be able to win games. That's what the Chiefs have been able to try to do recently with Kareem Hunt. But you also have Patrick Mahomes back there as well to do that. So with this Chargers-Texans game, the Chargers have been very hot. They've been playing very well recently with the run game, Jim Harbaugh. But on the other half too, you do have CJ Stroud, although they have not been as good this year. They've been kind of struggling, but D'Amico Ryans has been very good with game planning in the playoffs. They have had a little bit of injuries. Tank Dell went out. Stephon Diggs went out. So Nico Collins, who's been going off with his stats, I'm going to end up taking the Chargers here just because the Texans have been kind of struggling with their going against. They played the Ravens, and I know the Ravens are very hot, but they lost 31-2 against the Ravens, I believe, on Christmas Day. They also barely beat a Jaguars team a couple weeks ago, 23-20. They lost to the Chiefs by 2 touchdowns. The Texans have not been playing very good football. The Chargers, I think, are going to go in there, control the clock, control the game, allow the Texans to kind of not be able to get the ball, slow the game down, and run the ball with J.K. Dobbins back. I think that's going to be a huge game changer in this case. So I think I have the Chargers moving on. Obviously, the second round gets reseeded based on the winnings of the seeds and everything like that. Moving on to the next one, we're gonna have Steelers Ravens going on. I think this one's a pretty obvious one. Ravens are obviously favored in this one. They're at home. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. The second round matchup in the AFC is going to be very interesting. Lamar Jackson's one of the MVP candidates. A lot of people have been arguing Lamar or Josh Allen. But in total, they're playing amazing football, probably the hottest team in the NFL. And then they're going against the Steelers, who a couple weeks ago were playing very well. Their offense was doing pretty good. Russell Wilson was doing well. Najee Harris was actually having a really good year this year. Although I do think the Steelers are made to defend the Ravens very well. Their front seven, you got TJ Watt, you got Highsmith, you got Patrick Queen that they took from the Ravens. The Steelers probably have one of the best front sevens to be able to compete with the Ravens. They're just not playing very well. The offense is going to let them down. Russell Wilson, who was playing very well at the beginning of the year, is not doing the best. I think one of the hottest teams in the NFL is just going to take care of the Steelers, even though they split the season series. The Ravens have really just stepped it up ever since that. And I think Chris Boswell's 6 field goals aren't going to get it done this time. And the Ravens are going to pretty handily take on the Steelers. And then we're going to finish off the AFC here with the Bills and Broncos. A lot of people are going to think this is going to be a blowout. I do think it's going to be closer than what people think. I think Sean Payton and Bo Nix are going to go out there and make some plays, have a great game plan in place. But they're just not enough for Josh Allen. Josh Allen's probably the front runner for MVP right now. A lot of teams aren't going to be able to defend him in the playoffs. I think this one's a pretty simple one. They're at home. It's going to be cold. Even though Broncos are going to be used to it, their run game in the playoffs, like I've said, their run game is one of the most important things. They're just not going to be able to get it done. Although their secondary is very good, their defense has played good, even though they don't have the most star-powered guys on the defense. Patrick Surtain's going to do a great job. But Josh Allen's just going to find a way to make plays. James Cook's going to find a way to make plays. And they're just going to be able to be the more explosive team, and they're not going to be able to keep up with them. So I'm going to have the Bills moving on, winning this wild card weekend. Now moving on to the NFC. I think the NFC is a lot more interesting than the AFC. NFC has a lot more closer games, a lot more upset potential games. Starting out with probably the hardest game that I've been debating on who I'm going to pick to win, because initially looking at it, my gut tells me to go with the Green Bay Packers. Even though they didn't play that well last week, Jordan Love kind of got hurt and taken out of the game. They probably didn't want to risk him going back in, even though he was warming up potentially. But the Eagles are also going through their same injuries, because Jalen Hurts has missed last week. He got concussion 2 weeks ago, hasn't played in a couple weeks. Is he going to be rusty? Telling you my initial gut told me Green Bay. After thinking about it and looking at it a little bit, the Eagles are just too high-powered, I think. I'm going to go with the Eagles to move on and beat Green Bay in a close one. I think this is going to be the closest game of the weekend. I would not be shocked at all if the Packers ended up winning this game and moving on to play Detroit. But the Eagles are just too high-powered. Even if Jalen Hurts struggles, they don't necessarily have to rely on him even though they do have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Their run game, like I've said in the playoffs, the run game is the most important thing that's going on in the NFL in the playoffs. Run game and defense wins you NFL champion. It wins you Super Bowls. That's what happened That's what's happened the last couple of years. And even Jalen Hurts is struggling. He comes back a little bit rusty because he hasn't played in a couple of weeks. Saquon Barkley's still going to go for his 100 yards. Is probably a touchdown. They'll probably get a tush push in there to get it in. So it's just so much that this one's one of the most even games, in my opinion. But the Eagles are just too much high-powered, in my opinion, and I just don't see it necessarily happening, even though my gut did tell me Packers. And moving on, this is one of my first big upsets I'm going to have with the Commanders versus Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are a sneaky good team. A lot of people think that they can make it to the NFC Championship if they get the right road. They are a sneaky good team. They did struggle in the NFC South a little bit. They struggled against the Panthers. They struggled against the Saints coming out last week. They barely beat the Saints. And the Commanders, though, have been kind of like an up and down team. 1 week they look like, oh my God, they're amazing. Jaden Daniels is probably going to be Rookie of the Year. And then next week they come out and it's like, okay, is this the same Commanders team that's still going on? But a couple weeks ago, how they've been playing the last couple weeks, they really are on that upslope. So maybe they come out and they're on one of those weeks that's like, all right, what team is this? But I don't think so. I think Jaden Daniels is going to come out. I think he's going to make his plays. I think Dan Quinn's going to be able to be ready, have the team fired up, ready to go. I think Marshawn Lattimore, who they picked up midseason, is going to have a great game to be able to go against Mike Evans and kind of shut down Mike Evans. The big question will be if the Buccaneers stick with the run game and Bucky Irvin. Because Washington has one of the worst run defenses. If the Buccaneers stick with Bucky Irvin and stay to the game plan, don't get pass happy, Liam Cohen stays on his game plan of running the football with Bucky Irvin and then hitting Jalen McMillan, Mike Evans every once in a while, even though they're going to get theirs. If they shy away from that and get pass happy, I think the Commanders are definitely going to win this one and move on. Then moving on to the last game of Wild Card Weekend. This is the Monday night game. The Rams versus the Vikings. This one could be a shocker too. Vikings, 5 seed, they're going to be the favorites, 14-3. Year have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Brian Flores has done a great job. He's going to get his head coaching interviews next week in the divisional round. Kevin O'Connell is going to have the offense ready, but the Rams, Sean McVay is always going to have his game plan in place. Matthew Stafford's always go off in the playoffs. He always has great games in the playoffs. They have Cooper Kupp, Puka. Really, if the Vikings secondary can do their job, I know all about the Vikings. It's their front seven with their different blitzes that they come up. But I really do think the Vikings are going to handle business here, even though it's going to be a lot closer. I wouldn't be shocked again if the Rams win. It's the playoffs. Anybody can beat anybody. But the Vikings just have truly been better all year, even though you kind of do have the matchup here where the Vikings are known to choke in the playoffs. They have Sam Darnold. Can you trust them? The Rams are known to play better in the playoffs. So it kind of makes you think if maybe you should pick the Rams here. But I think the Vikings, Brian Flores is going to lead them. Kevin O'Connell is going to get Sam Darnold, make some plays with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Aaron Jones is going to get a couple in there. And I think Vikings are overall going to have the better front seven with the Rams offensive line. It's all in the trenches. The Vikings are just going to dominate up front, and they're going to be moving on to the next round. So that was overall my wild card prediction for this weekend. This is what the second round would look for me. Next week, depending on how it goes with the wild card weekend, I'm going to be back giving my divisional picks around this time next week. And then in the next couple days, either tomorrow or Friday, I'm going to have up my full predictions for the entire playoffs of who's going to win the Super Bowl before the wild card games start, so that I can have my full playoff bracket in place for you guys to look back on. So if you're looking forward to those, and another thing, make sure to like the video.
Yeah, feel like John Morant, need a triple-double, told him check the stats, yeah, I got a couple, I don't drop the ball, now I never fumble, I'm the MVP, now I feel like Russell, feel like John Morant, need a triple-double, told him check the stats, yeah, I got a couple.